Everyone, welcome back to 2023 One Media World Conference, our global media event showcasing some of the best in business and entrepreneurship from within the media industry as we come together here to explore the latest trends, insights, and innovations. Let's embrace the opportunity to hear and connect with some of our amazing visionary speakers during the course of our conference who are helping shape media as we move forward. We're happy to welcome back to the One Business World platform again our good friend Fred Ehle. He's the Vice President, Marketing Solutions Group for Rose Ryan. Fred's joining us this morning from the Windy City, Chicago. Good morning, Fred. Good to see you.
Good morning, Glenn. Great to be here. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Fred's topic this morning is the need to balance brand and performance marketing. So Fred, let me hand it off over to you, and I will keep track of the chat here, and we'll join you on the backside, okay?
Terrific. Thank you. Let me just talk a little bit about Rose Ryan. We are a division of ZRG Partners, a private equity funded global talent and advisory firm. We are a professional services firm that does on-demand leadership consulting and support services in marketing, finance, and accounting. Basically, we are interim and fractional as well as consultative in all of those areas, but with a very deep knowledge in high-tech software, life sciences. We've got 120 consultants, and we've been in business now. This is our 30th year. I also want to acknowledge the Creative Business Company, who is a partner with us in this presentation. They are responsible for the research and content in this presentation. They help challengers scale profitably. The creativebusinesscompany.com is there, and their lead is Faisal and his contact information. So many thanks to the Creative Business Company for their permission and support in this. Let's talk first about why brands are important, because there's a lot about performance marketing these days and a lot of focus in performance marketing, and sometimes I think it's at the shrift of brands. You may recall or you may know that they are a shorthand promise to your customers of your positioning. They are proprietary, but most importantly, when built and grown appropriately, they are a balance sheet asset. These are the top 3 brands in the world according to Forbes last fall. Apple has a valuation of a brand in and of itself of $240 billion. Google's brand is worth $207 billion. These are balance sheet assets. And no matter how big or small your brand is, your brand does carry a valuation. So it needs care and nurture. But performance marketing is also important because it's targeted, it's measurable, and it's efficient, but it alone is limited. So the question, especially for small businesses, is how do you scale small businesses profitably? You growth hack big companies. You balance brand and performance marketing, which all companies of all sizes can do in this day and age of digital marketing. Most people are future customers that don't even know you exist and aren't aware that your product is something they need. I mean, this is the reality in almost every business, whether it's B2B or B2C. 95% of the market are your future customers. They're not in the market at any given point in time, but you need to stay top of mind with those customers in order to keep your top of funnel full. Otherwise, your mid-bottom funnel, which is where performance marketing lives, are not going to be filled and you're not going to be able to convert them. Big brands can grow because they've got the resources to chase both current and future customers at the same time. So they can stay top of mind for whenever the business or customer wants to raise their hand and say, I'm in the market. Whereas the smaller brands only focus on sort of the existing demand or people who have already raised their hands and said they are in the market and looking. And ignore, for financial reasons as much as anything else, this future demand, which is really where the opportunity lies as much as, if not more so than in existing demand. By investing, the big brands invest in media like TV and mass media and get the widest possible reach. This is still the best way to grow awareness quickly, believe it or not, in this day and age. And this is the sort of landscape of where you can place media and video these days, and from broadcast, TikTok, YouTube, and these are just sort of the percentages. But at the end of the day, broadcast TV is still 64% of all video. That TV also generates the most profit per dollar invested because of its wide and mass reach. TV and print still delivers 89% of all advertising generated profit for any business. And you see online video, which includes broadcaster, VOD, YouTube, Facebook video, and online programmatic, is still infinitesimally small versus traditional, and connected TV. So the big brands use this mass media to deliver engaging marketing messages and tell a story instead of just selling products. So this is the brand side of those, the brand side of the communication, which when done right and well, evokes some type of an emotional response in addition to the rational sell. And believe it or not, I've seen this and heard this from multiple sources. And I'm not sure how anyone quantifies this, but 8% of all business decisions or purchase decisions are made emotionally, not rationally. And the data here would support that in terms of campaigns that are sort of more rational versus emotional, the effect they've got on sales, the effect they've got on market share, and more importantly, the effect they have on profit is still very significant. So the result is that the big brands can convert this existing demand today and build a pipe of future demand tomorrow. And that's the important thing, is building this pipe and having that pipe constantly being filled by new users coming into your funnel. So it seems that the big guys with the big budgets have an unfair advantage because they can go after everyone, which is really expensive. So what most smaller brands do, and again, B2C or B2B, they make a very fatal mistake, which is they double down on performance marketing. They advertise where the purchasers are paying only when they are measurable results, as opposed to going after a broader target and keeping that top of funnel full. Now, it makes sense because performance ads are affordable. As we mentioned before, they're targeted and they're measurable, but they can't build, they can't scale. And they are also built on an auction-based model. So whoever bids the most wins. This is the most important aspect of performance marketing, is that auction-based model. So the ads touch the consumer at their point of need, and when they act or declared something, and the competition is at its most intense because that's where all your competitors are also bidding for those same eyeballs. So the result is that the cost of attracting an audience is at its maximum. The average CPC is $5 to $10. So funneling your entire budget, ad budget, media budget through a bidding process increases your exposure to external factors, including, as I mentioned before, bid inflation versus competitors, versus structural changes and other ad campaigns in your market that also reduce your performance. And so since the economics of performance marketing can quickly become unsustainable, it's really hard to scale. You're basically driving each other's costs up for the same people. So as a result, you're only concentrating on 5% of the market and an increasingly expensive market, whereas the big brand advertisers are looking at the entire market. So you're fighting over the same small number of active shoppers. How do you get out of this? Oh, and then this also, once the current demand is exhausted, if you aren't filling that top of funnel adequately enough, you fall into what we call the CAC valley of death, which is you're underinvested in top of funnel, there's no new demand created, and all you're doing is driving up your cost per acquisition until it's unsustainable. You're getting short-term results at the expense of future growth. You're paying more and more for the same people that are dwindling in number, where at best maybe staying steady state. You know, in the marketing world, we call this sort of a fighting over the share. You're fighting over the share game, and there's no growth in the marketplace. There's no top of funnel growth, and so all you're trying to do is slice up the same piece of pie, but it's costing you more and more to do that. This is why a lot of brands can't scale profitably. If you only live in performance marketing, you're not going to be profitable. And here are some of the brands to date that, you know, were never really profitable, still aren't profitable. Dollar Shave Club finally sold to Unilever, I believe. You know, Casper is losing money. There's still, Uber is still losing money. There's still a number of brands today that are huge, but are not profitable. So how do you convert today and build demand for tomorrow? You have to chase impact at scale. You have to dramatize your difference. Content is king, and I can't emphasize this enough as well. If you get sharp with your media, which we'll talk about in your media spend, you've also got to be sharp with your message. The toughest thing in marketing right now is driving relevant differentiation. Is it relevant to your customer or target market? And is it different? Is it meaningful? And spend smarter. So if you've got a combination of the proper mix of media and a great piece of content or differentiation, you will win. There are low-cost digital video channels that can deliver storytelling, which is kind of talking about, and you can reach and move as many people as possible. The digital-first companies have created huge brands by investing in ads that don't sell a specific product necessarily. You can use the performance marketing channels to tell your product story, but they tell your story. They tell your business story, they tell your point of difference, and they're aimed at as many people in your target audience or in your market as possible. And you want these to be talked about and shared. Video can work for top and bottom funnel objectives, and it's a lot cheaper than just using click-based advertising, believe it or not. So even the best ads are wasted if no one notices them. Finding more efficient content distribution is part of it, but if you don't have the right content, no one will notice or act. And this is what I mentioned earlier. Most ads are ignored, as you can imagine. Think about yourself. The average number of ads seen per day are 4,000. The percentage of ads forgotten or ignored are 89%. And the wasted ad spend in 2020 was $222 billion. This is the quintessential. I know half my advertising is working. I just don't know which half. And you've got to look at both your channels and your message. Tell the story. Tell a compelling product story. Tell the story in a compelling way. Ideally, do all three. And then you will be noticed. You will be remembered. And the other aspect of this media planning and this placement is staying top of mind with your prospects so that when they are in the market, you're in that considered set of brands or products to be considered and purchased, as opposed to just forgotten and ignored. So what's the balance of top and bottom funnel spend? Typically, it's the 60-40 rule. You want to invest 60% in your top of funnel and 40% in your bottom funnel. That's optimal. Now, this is a sort of starting post. Some businesses overinvest in top of funnel because they've got less option in the bottom funnel, especially if you've got like sort of physical retail. Then you really are driving people to a point of purchase, a physical point of purchase. So they will have a little bit of a different balance. But by and large, you want to overinvest in top of funnel and brand because you don't know when those prospects and those customers are going to be in the marketplace. So in summary, you can't scale a brand with just performance marketing alone. You've got to build awareness in the top of funnel. It can be done efficiently, even by the smaller brands, but it's all for naught if your content is not compelling, motivating, rational, and emotional. And that, Glenn, is all I have today on the need for balancing performance and brand marketing.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciated your presentation and your talk and some of your statistics. That's pretty amazing. 89% ignored. Wow.
But if you think about all the content that we're exposed to, just think about, I mean, if you just want to spend 2 hours today, right? If you can note all the different sorts of paid content you see, just trying to do that and alone will probably exhaust yourself, but it will sort of send a mental note in terms of, you know, where you get messaged, how you get messaged, how often. It's pretty dramatic. And then think about, Glenn, like, you know, how many of those messages really are appropriate for you? Like, have you ever been a customer or consumer of any of those, you know, sorts of brands or categories? And you realize the wastage, you know, that's out there in terms of where you're placing your messaging and what kinds of channels.
It's almost like the old Westerns when they had the Gatling gun, right? And they were just kind of like spraying the landscape with rapid fire, hoping it's gonna catch. $222 billion of wasted spend. My God, that you think of how that money could be put to other uses or even reinvested in your own businesses. I guess part of it is, I mean, you try to be as data driven as you can and analytical as you can, and you try to pick your spots. And there's lots of, I guess, sources and things. But as you said earlier in the talk as well, I mean, part of how we take it in is we buy emotionally, right? We become enamored with the product, or it might remind us of something, and that's kind of what drives us towards that ultimate purchase.
And even in the B2B world, Glenn, there's an emotional component to your decision making. Of course, no one will admit that when you tell them, well, why did I buy that Cadillac or that BMW? It's like, well, I bought it because it was the most practical, best use of, well, no, it's because it's got BMW or it's got Mercedes-Benz on it, right? And it's a $100,000 car in some cases. And, you can find plenty of reliable cars for $20,000 or $30,000. But why did you spend the extra $80,000 or $70,000? Well, it's because of what comes with that brand, right? But no one's going to say, "Well, I bought it because I wanted to show off," right? or,
No,
or,
that's right.
or that I wanted to have a luxury, transportation vehicle. But even in the B2B world, I mean, there's the old, saying, nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM. And that's just it, right? I mean, there is the rash or the emotional in the B2B side is, this isn't going to work. This product or service for my company isn't going to work, or it's not going to perform. It's going to reflect badly on me. And so that is very much part of this. Yes, of course, there's the data side of it. There's the spec. There's all sorts of very rational things around it. But at the end of the day, if you come down to 2 or 3 suppliers that can all do the same thing for the same amount of money, how are you going to decide?
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine people kind of drift towards the lost aversion mentality, right? It's almost, you better to play for the tie,
Right.
to use an old hockey term, rather than go for the win, right? As,
Yep.
as you come in, some of the bigger players that you talked about on the presentation, what do you find them doing better? Or are they more nimble? Is it budgeting? Is it just because, hey, everybody knows who they are from a branding standpoint?
From a branding standpoint, branding is very simple and it's simply and very easy to say, very hard to do, which is you really need to carve out what is unique in the marketplace as much as possible, whether it's your product or service or how you're talking about yourself or how you appear in the marketplace, and own it. And more in making sure that is motivating and different and relevant. And then it's being consistent in supporting it. So that's the other side of this, is that, if you're not out there consistently putting your brand, your message, your product in the marketplace, if you spend 1 month and you're off for 4 or 5 months and you come back, or even spend heavily in 1 year when you've got a new product introduction and you don't spend it all the next year, that sort of inconsistency is really hard, because the way you build a brand is you grow its awareness and you grow its understanding. And that requires investment, consistent investment, and a consistent sort of look and feel and message. And that consistency is not, the best brands do that very consistently, both in terms of look and feel and message, but also in terms of channel and support.
It's interesting. It actually sounds a lot like how you would cultivate a good relationship or
Exactly.
a friendship, right?
Right.
Right. You think about who you connect with over time, and are you good to that relationship? Do you follow up? Is it just, I only reach out when I need something? Or
Right.
do you have, like, as you said, kind of like periodic check-ins that, every quarter I'm going to drop a quick note and just check on them, how they're doing. Maybe she's okay. Maybe, hopefully get something back. And, maybe we get lucky. We have a cup of coffee if we're nearby, or maybe even a Zoom if we had to stoop to the Zoom level. But hopefully get a chance to connect. And it sounds very similar to that in kind of
No
crafting
question. Right.
a longer term vision for people
No question.
as they go through.
And being, you hear a lot about authenticity too. And I think that's part of it too, in terms of relationship, is being, what you are, either as a person, as a business, as a product. I mean, you just think about, Apple's, especially since, Jobs came back, and even to this day, they've been incredibly consistent in terms of their sort of brand look, feel, their product design. It's just the whole, Steve said, everything communicates, right? And that brand, I know it's held up, but there's a good reason why. And that is because that brand has been incredibly consistent in terms of their look and feel, incredibly consistent in terms of their product, and by and large, their product quality, innovation. And so, when you hold up, one of these, you know immediately, where it's from almost without even seeing the brand anymore. And
Yeah.
also very consistent in terms of how they support it in the various sort of media that they show up in.
Well, it's kind of like growing up. All of a sudden, all of those generic terms came from the brand. Oh, I need a Kleenex, right? Oh,
Right.
I gotta go make a Xerox, right?
Right.
It wasn't just making a copy. I gotta go make a Xerox, right? I mean,
Yeah.
similar kind of piece in balancing the message and recognizing that time goes so quickly, and what long range used to be is a lot shorter than it was. How do you balance the budgeting aspect of it, right? Because in the end, I mean, you still got to manage the dollars, you got to manage the C-suite, you got to manage, buying dollars. How best to try to manage the dollar part of it as well? Does it
Well, I
follow
think
the message directly, or is it a little bit
yes,
different?
I think it does. And you saw early in the presentation, we proposed a 60-40 balance of brand top of funnel to performance bottom funnel, because you have to have both. It's not a one or other. It's not an either or. It's both. But to your point, that the longer term, it's a longer term investment, and it takes a long time to build awareness consistently. That is the sort of, you will not see performance from, if you're starting from zero awareness, trying to build awareness over time. It's going to take time, no matter how much you spend. To be honest with you, because as a consumer or as a customer, to your point, if I need you, then I'm going to start thinking about you. But otherwise, I'm not really thinking about you unless you're in front of me all the time. The reason the insurance companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and you see insurance ads almost every day. I mean, that's what I see, especially fill in the blank insurance company, is because they don't know when you're going to buy a car or when you bought a house. There's not a lot of quick signals. And by the time I'm signaling in the performance side that I'm looking, I've already thought of who I'm going to probably buy from. So you want that consumer going into the purchase process already having in mind sort of a considered set of companies that they're going to consider before they purchase. And that's when then once you get into that consideration set and that purchase behavior, that's when you let the performance side of it convert.
Yeah, well, like any buy, it's always you want them there when you need them, right? I mean, it's
Right.
that kind of stream of consciousness. I do a lot of driving back and forth to Pennsylvania, and a lot of deer on the interstate, right? A lot of warnings. There's a company that's got a billboard, old-fashioned billboard, right as you come into the deer area, and it's a collision place. We're here when you need us. It was like
Exactly.
the tagline. I'm looking at it, like, oh my God, is this a jinx or what? I hope not. I hope not.
It's smart though, right? There you are at the point of need, right?
Well, potentially you're on the side of the road and you look up and it's like, oh, all right, there's the number to call. How about looking at from a balance standpoint? Any reflections on potential artificial intelligence or just that kind of world jumping into this?
I mean, I think the AI side of it, put chat aside a little bit, because the chat GPT is more on the messaging and content side. I think there's still some early days, at least in terms of persuasive messaging, that, certainly I'm a big proponent of test and learn, A/B test. I mean, that's how you get better, is you test message, you test channels till you get to the optimal mix. And so I think the AI side of it is certainly, I think, going to be much more on the performance side and probably on the conversion side, because it's more of a binary sort of black and white, dollar out, dollar back process. The longer term, I think, that will still need to become, I think, to a different level of current sophistication for it to sort of be effective from where I sit. But certainly right now, on the performance side, absolutely. On the A/B side, testing, absolutely. I would start to do some testing with it before I'd scale it. Always. That's the other thing, is the extent you can test anything in a low cost, low risk environment before you scale it, the better. Because then you've got, your odds for success are infinitely better.
Right, and you haven't jumped off the pier with your checkbook at that moment, and then found out that the water was really shallow. Yep. Right, you got a chance to kind of make it from a kind of working it out standpoint, a nice chance to kind of trial it or demo it, if you will, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, Fred, thanks for joining us today. One Media World, outstanding presentation as always. You're like the master juggler here on the balancing side. We really appreciate all of your insights here today for our audience. And thanks for joining us. So Fred, everybody, Fred Ehle from Rose Ryan, Need to Balance Brand and Performance Marketing. Excellent job as always, Fred.
Thank you.
See you next time. Take care. Thanks again for joining us. Bye.
Bye-bye.